Hey guys, today we're driving a 2021 Lexus RX 350L. Just last week we had the 450 Hybrid, and today I'm on a Acura MDX comparison drive. So they're letting me drive some of the competitors to the new 2022 MDX, and I figured it'd be very interesting to get a look at this new RX 350. So let's walk you around it. I'll take you for a drive, do a little sound system test. It does not have the Mark Levinson, so this will be a good test of the bass audio system. In the back seats, we've got the same spacious RX 350 that we're used to, just that there is a third row. And granted, it's a little bit tight back there, but I think in a pinch with very small-legged children, you'd be able to get through it. But like you can see, you can't push the second row all the way back. You have to move that quite a bit forward, otherwise you're going to squish the occupant's legs in the back seat. So honestly, if you're looking for a three-row SUV, I would probably go with a Toyota Highlander or a minivan. This is maybe not even as useful as the Lexus GX as a three-row SUV. And if you know anything about my ownership with the GX, I've used the third row on a number of occasions, and you can actually fit adults back there, at least one adult, and then kind of flop their legs over the seat. This though, I don't know. I'd probably just swing for the regular RX 350. At least in terms of cargo space. Alright guys, let's take this thing for a drive. Pretty much the same RX 350 we've had for a long time. We have Apple CarPlay plugged in on this one, and we are on a nice little snowy section of road. Roads may be icy, yes they are. Lots of ground clearance, a good amount of winter driving traction in this RX. The standard tires feel pretty good. Steering is super light. There's an Acura RDX PMC edition, which is pretty cool. This has a 3.5 liter, 290 horsepower V6. The RX 350 is all-wheel drive, and it has an 8-speed automatic transmission. Interestingly, that's the same horsepower number as the new Acura MDX. We've got a good little back road here. We can do some more spirited driving. A little bit of a change up from our usual entrance and exit ramps on our regular test route. Let's put it into sport mode and see how it feels. This V6 does sound great. Feels pretty willing to downshift. Let's see how the paddles work. A little bit sluggish, but again, this is a Lexus RX. Pretty quiet at speed. Very comfortable, very isolated. I do like the steering that Lexus has been doing in their vehicles for the last decade or so. It's really solid, really confidence-inspiring. Immediately I can feel the extra ride comfort and ride quality from this long wheelbase car. It just feels a little bit more planted and a little bit more comfortable than the RX 450h we had last week. Let's put us back into sport mode here, take a couple corners. I said in my last review of the RX 450h that I would probably just prefer the standard RX 350 And I think that's still the case here. You know, the hybrid was nice. It did tend to kind of drone a little bit with the CVT, the eCVT, and the hybrid system. And for the extra cost, I'm not really sure you would necessarily get that in fuel savings. Sport mode does a nice job sensing that we're on a back road. Automatically downshifted there through that turn. Ultimately, though, it kind of depends on your driving preference. I mean, do you prefer a traditional automatic or an eCVT? Lexus does a really nice job with their hybrid systems, but they do tend to feel slightly dated, especially compared to Toyota's latest hybrid offerings in the Venza, the Highlander, and of course the RAV4 Prime. I do like Lexus ergonomics. They've done a really nice job with the cruise control, the lane keep assist, the steering assist does work quite well on this new RX. Yeah, pretty impressive, 40 miles an hour. These aren't ideal conditions for steering assist, but it seems to be keeping us nicely centered. I would say where this RX is really lacking is definitely in the infotainment. The screen is a little bit, I mean, this isn't the upgraded larger screen, and I don't know, yes, this is a touchscreen now, so that's nice. But Lexus's touchpad doesn't hold a candle to Acura's new one-to-one touch system. This is just kind of a traditional touchpad. They have improved it over the years, and that is nice. But the Acura system, wherever you touch on the pad, it actually relates to where you select on the screen. It doesn't quite work in Apple CarPlay on the MDX, and it basically turns into kind of the same thing as this Lexus touchpad system. But I actually don't mind this smaller screen in this RX. This is a little bit simpler, a little bit more straightforward, less complicated, and honestly, I'm not too mad about it. It is tiny looking in this car, and it does look pretty tacked on there, whereas the last RX, it was quite nicely integrated. Alright, let's tackle this back road and see what the handling is like. I'd say the driving dynamics are a little bit more exciting and just enjoyable in the MDX, especially the new 2022. That has double wishbone front suspension, multi-link rear suspension, which definitely adds up to a pretty dynamic driving experience. Not a lot of steering feel from this RDX, but again, you know, luxury crossover, nothing sporty. This isn't even trying to be sporty. It's not an F Sport, which I think honestly makes a lot of sense. You don't really need your RX to be a sporty driving experience. Handling is quite nice though. We're on a pretty bumpy section of road here, and it's just soaking it all up in form. It's doing a really nice job isolating you from the road imperfections. Shifting mode. These pedals are actually quite nice. No complaints there. Even in manual mode, they seem to hold gears nicely. Very responsive. They won't bounce off the rev limiter. It will upshift when you hit red line. I'm not thrilled, but if you're on a road trip with your family and you want to make them car sick on a back road, you can do it in the RX 350L. Let's settle things down here. Let's go into eco mode. Immediately, I have a super dulled throttle. I would even go as far to say that eco mode almost dulls the throttle tuning too much. That said though, I think the RX is a really nice overall vehicle in this class. There's nothing quite class leading about it, but it is comfortable, it's reliable, it's a Lexus. If you've already bought into the Lexus ecosystem, it's a very nice option. It's very livable. You have all-wheel drive, a decent amount of ground clearance, a mild amount of off-road capability if you need to go camping or just off the beaten path. You're not going to be rock crawling in your RX 350, but it'll get you to where you need to go. And it's just a nice luxury crossover. I mean, this is kind of the one that did it all and the one that started everything back in the day. And this L, you do get some extra practicality, get a little bit more trunk space. The third row is virtually useless. The ride quality is a little bit of an improvement, but honestly, it's not that much different from the standard RX 350. Pricing isn't too bad for this. I think this particular RX is around $54,000. So actually the same price thereabouts as the hybrid we had last week. Let's do a 0 to 60 here where we've got an open stretch of road. Do a brake test. Oh yeah, brakes feel pretty good. And off the line. Not the most scientific 0 to 60, but you get the idea. This is definitely a front-biased all-wheel drive system in that it senses wheel slip from the front tires and immediately sends power to the back. Traction control kicks in pretty aggressively, but it doesn't completely stop everything. While we're just cruising here, let's go in and do a sound system test. Listen to this bass audio system. Got our music. Let me negotiate this left-hander here without crashing. There we go. Again, this touchpad is just kind of tedious to use. All right, here we go. We're good. Again, I was really impressed with the Mark Levinson and the RX 450H we had. That was probably one of my favorite Mark Levinson systems in the Lexus lineup. Tell you immediately that this sound system isn't nearly as impressive. It just lacks the clarity, the magic, the really nice tones of the Mark Levinson systems. It even sounds a little bit grainy. Let's skip a couple tracks here. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent sound system. I think if you don't really care about music quality, it's just fine in a $50,000 car. But if you're going to be wanting to listen to some really nice music in your luxury crossover, which at 55 grand I would want to. The Mark Levinson in the RX is very good, but really the MDX ELS system, especially the 16 speaker, is absolutely mind-blowingly good. It might be the best audio system I've heard in any car at any price point. The TLX was very good too, but I feel like the MDX just has a little bit of a shoe up on it. It literally blows you away. It's pretty amazing what it can do, especially with high quality tracks. So again, if audio is your thing, check out the new MDX when that comes out, or if you're looking at RX 350s, highly recommend the Mark Levinson system. Really shocked at how invasive traction control is in this car. I mean, it is a little bit slippery out today, but it's definitely hampering all the back road fun, which I think for the normal buyer is not a bad thing. We aren't really pushing it today, but we do have some wet sections. Alright guys, well that's going to wrap up my thoughts on the RX 350L. This came out a few years ago and I never really got a chance to drive one, and I think it's a nice overall crossover, but its intended purpose was to add a third row, and it's kind of a useless third row if I'm being honest. There's literally no room back there. I think if you were just fitting kids in the back, you'd be just fine, no problems. But if you compared it to the MDX third row, you can actually pull out the center section in the second row and have very easy access to those third row seats. For a crossover that's around the same size, yeah, the MDX is kind of the way to go, if I'm being honest.